show. This time we're reviewing The Social Dilemma, a documentary on Netflix. As always, I'm your host Daniel with my father and co-host Jerry. Say hi, Dad.
Hello.
Okay. Well, this one's already got somewhat big. I think it was trending in the top for Netflix for a while, and it's essentially on the dangers. Well, I don't know about the dangers per se, but the issues with the artificial intelligence and social media on that. Somewhat. It's kind of scattered, I think, would be one of the better ways to describe it.
Yeah, I think it goes over three different issues. It goes over what the social media does
Mhm.
as to mental health and the health of the public.
Yeah,
It goes over what we call as surveillance capitalism, where
yeah.
they're actually forcing you to buy stuff.
Hmm.
Not really forcing you, but producing
Manipulating
and
you.
manipulating you to buy stuff,
Yeah,
manipulation. And then at the end, they also touch on somewhat of the fake news idea
yeah.
and how it's trying to uh, sort of brainwash you into doing
Yeah.
different things.
Well, like one of the things I want to talk about at first is because this one kind of has like they kind of have their own little sketch, well, not really sketch thing, but like their own little mini show going on where they, as they're talking about it, they have like this fictionalized family and stuff. And I thought that was actually like really to the detriment of this. First off, like the its short thing is its family's addicted to social media except for somehow the teenage girl, uh, which is probably of them the one most likely, but that's all beside the point. But my big problem with it is one, they didn't really take a stand against like the villain in it is like this called the like radical centrists, which is like you could just have like neo Nazis be the villain
Yeah.
because that's something that has happened, or like the Proud Boys or something that for the most part it's uncontroversial. And I realize like the Proud Boys creation was originally a joke, but now they're like just a bunch of racists. Um, on that, I know a lot, somewhat about on this, but like they had this when they could have had like some of the like more like it was trying to just kind of be like a dramatization of this stuff that happens and stuff. But I feel like if they would have just given like the stories of the people that it happened to, it would have been far more effective. Because they had
Yeah.
that like horrifying story in like one of the newspapers sometime this year or late last year about the guy that went on YouTube and was looking up social health videos. Sorry, not psychological help videos and stuff, and self help. And like he got on like Stefan Molyneux, who's like you probably don't know who he is, but he's just this like racist race realist or whatever. He's just a racist. And but he does it in like fake pseudoscience and stuff, and he's like some far right commentator guy who's, I mean, he's crazy. His stuff's all fake and whatnot. It's race realism, and like in that how that got him going down the rabbit hole of like anti-immigration and all this stuff, and like how like he was actually somewhat brought back by like a debate and everything. You didn't have to go that far, but to me, like even though that's anecdotal, that's far more interesting and far more terrifying than what they're trying to portray.
Yeah. The only thing I think that they did is they had the
Yeah.
three people who were actually uh, sort of the control center of
Yeah, and
uh,
I think that worked.
that worked,
Yeah,
I
that
thought.
worked, but they could have done that for like just anybody, which they
Yes,
did for the teenage boy. But they could have just done that it's anybody to show, like, because obviously they're explaining like how these intelligence work and stuff. But they could have done that for anybody. But like, what I'm saying is like I thought that worked really well, and that was a good visual representation of what was going on. But like I said, the story I told you now is first off, it's real, and it's way more disturbing than what they showed in that,
yes,
because this is literally a person who, like, I think he described himself before this as liberal, but I don't think that really matters when you talk about this. That literally went to seek self help, and because of the algorithms and stuff, um, YouTube, which I realize we're gonna post this on YouTube and everything, but whatever, literally brought him to a racist, fake, pseudo self help guy.
yeah,
And I know like I know there's a huge number of quacks in the self help industry, but not most of them aren't racist.
yeah,
Um, and and that, um, and like that was probably my main complaint because like I mean I've looked into a lot. I don't use a lot of social media because I never really had time for it. And when I was growing up, like I was just annoyed by the drama, which is why I never really got into it in MySpace and stuff when all my friends did. Uh, I also can't spell, so that might have been a reason. But it's like you made this kind of fake villain that's a stupid fake villain, like some radical centrists. And where centrists are annoying, uh, but when you could have used something real, and like you have all these. If you want to do an anecdotal story, it's it's not like the best scientific thing, but it's fine to get the point across. It's fine to like show like, hey, this and happened to people. Hey, these people are watching these videos that are uh, edited in this way and whatnot, or like I mean, it's a direct thing that they're talking about. That's kind of the failing of the algorithm on how it works. Uh, because as much issues I have with like Facebook and Google and how they look at the stuff, I don't think they intend for people to well, I don't know anymore, but I don't think they intend for people to become neo-Nazis and white supremacists because of it. Um,
The the well, they did bring out something on that,
yeah,
somewhat. The more radicalized everybody is,
yeah,
the more they look at
hmm
Facebook, so the more money they make.
yeah, and the more of that,
That was one of the things.
and I think like the main point of this thing was they had the people that created the stuff come out against it and what they're doing on it, and I think that's really important. Uh, but I also think like obviously like if I make something and I fully don't believe like the one guy talked about like how he created the like button and he did it because he thought it would make people happier and be fun and be more positive, but he thinks now it's helping increases the suicide rate, which I don't really remember them like doing any actual. They just kind of showed how they correlated, which I know correlation isn't causation and all that, uh, which is another problem I found with this documentary. But like but it also like in people like that, the people that created it, even if they don't like their creation, they don't want to ever say about how they're the bad guy in this.
No, that was a big problem with me. A lot of the people were people who started this out and
Mm-hmm.
actually created a lot of the stuff on it. And they said, yeah, we did the wrong thing, but we aren't really that bad a person.
Yeah, and like
And it sounded real hollow.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I fully believe like a large number of them are terrified at what the thing they created did.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean, you have to be to not be a sociopath.
yeah. The only one I thought that actually
Mm-hmm.
really named that was they had one guy who was a venture capitalist who invested in it immediately,
Mm-hmm.
and he said all of a sudden I realized what was going on. I pulled my money out.
Yeah, and you had the I don't know his name, but the guy with the dreadlocks and stuff that was like
Yeah,
against the social media thing for the most part. He didn't
he's
have anything to do with it, but I liked him.
he
Uh,
was a professor at MIT or
yeah,
Harvard.
or
Yeah,
something like that. But
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, like I think it's really important to have them like say this kind of stuff, and I think just teaching people like how it's doing the ad revenue and stuff uh, on it, and
Yeah.
but like. But there's things that I've like just seen over the years and stuff that is way more like, especially I'm gonna keep going back to like this little family, because
Yeah.
like they could have like shown how to do the ad revenue, and then I remember some guy talking. I don't remember if it was on 60 Minutes or like that Sunday morning show
Mhm.
about like he was a campaign manager, and he talked about how like the algorithm and stuff, they were giving individualized ads, and like for the ad for some people the button would be red and some people it would be blue and some people it would be green, and it's because you're statistically more likely according to these algorithms to press that button.
Mhm.
And they didn't really get into the like social, well, first off, the absolute abuse of like psychology and sociology that these things are doing. um
They talked about it on a cursory, like they talk about nudges, although
yeah, well, I mean, like
they
one of the
never really
things,
put forth what the nudge was.
yeah,
But somewhat you got it from the thing where they try to, like the one guy, I mean, the one that I found real interesting was
hmm
where the kid was sitting in the cafeteria
hmm
and they had a girl that they knew he liked,
hmm
in the cafeteria, so they tried to get him involved in the social media by putting some of her post up on his thing.
Yeah, and like obviously something that like an AI would do. That
Yeah,
all of a sudden they talk for a while, then went black, and I think like it said it was his ex-girlfriend. But like I said, I think just like first off, like yeah, that was a good thing, and I'm sure you could find something realistic like that, or just say that you didn't really like you could have just had like or mini sketches, and not try to tie this whole thing into one event. But like they didn't really go into like how like it's getting into the way people think and stuff, and trying to move them in one direction. They never talked about like uh, one of the big things that always has drove me nuts, and something that I just don't understand how they can do ethically, is like how the Facebook news thing, it's not the same for everybody.
yeah,
Um, and how each individual person gets their own individual news. So you could literally have somebody who's relatively centrist or something might have clicked on some people in one political direction, and then and then obviously they're gonna get more of that, and then more of that, and then more of that, until it like you literally start going into like the like crazy Breitbart, Daily Stormer. Well, I don't think Facebook would ever put on Daily Stormer or something like that, but Daily Wire and stuff, news articles and stuff. Um, and some of the stuff that's like just straight up partisan and has no actual new, literally belongs in the that would appear in an old newspaper opinion section. And then going how before and early on, like this was never an option. Like if you go to uh, whatever news page, like even if you're like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, everybody sees the same things. Uh, and like how like that and how bad like that really is, and same with how YouTube uh, does the news things and news videos and stuff.
well, that's the thing. And they never really talked about ways
Mm-hmm.
in which we
To,
could actually stop it.
yeah,
I
and
mean, the ways to stop it were all things that measures that you could take. You know, you could look at a different search engine that
mm-hmm.
doesn't keep your history,
Yeah,
although get worse searches.
yeah,
Uh, you, uh, you should avoid things like likes and stuff. Uh, but
mm-hmm.
that's still, the thing that irks me is that I'll get 15 people on my birthday that contact me to know my birthday that I never heard of.
Yeah. Well, even then, like I remember how I was kind of disturbed when I turned 18, and this was over 10 years ago now, and got a razor blade sent to me by Gillette.
Yeah.
I was like, why do they know my birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously, like, especially like, um, I mean, I don't think this was before the smartphone and stuff, and certainly not before Facebook. But I wasn't on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not really on social media. Um,
And
uh, and like one of the things, like, um, one of the problems is you also though have to be out there now to get a job,
mhm. Yeah.
or
Well, everybody has to be on the internet,
mm-hmm,
and everything that you do is kept track of.
yeah,
So that means if I'm working at my job
mm-hmm,
and I'm on the internet, which I have to be because everything I do is on the internet.
yeah,
I'm a patent attorney. I search for patents on the internet. I search for all kinds of material as related to the patents on the internet, all type of scientific things. Every one of that stuff is not only they know where I went,
mm-hmm,
but they know how long I stayed there, what I looked at, specific areas that I
yeah,
zeroed in on. I mean, I could, if I was a research scientist,
mm-hmm,
somebody could zero in on my research and figure out exactly what I was doing.
yeah. Well, I mean, look at
That's,
me. I mean, I worked in work technically in the defense industry.
yeah.
I mean, how disturbing is like that, and them looking into it, or like a foreign country or something. Um, but
Especially saying, I said, especially saying the Russians have been inside the U.S. government's
yeah,
thing for the last 6 months.
mm-hmm, uh-huh.
Yeah.
But like, and like I said, I think the only thing the guy, like almost all the stuff they said was like all stuff like you could do to avoid social media, not like first off, like they didn't get into it that like these people are using this like admittingly, like some of the stuff they could use it for is worse than just selling ads,
Yeah.
which a lot of it is. Um, but like,
But it's
but they never
bad
like,
just to sell ads.
yeah.
I mean, they're taking money from the general public
Mhm.
by pushing them to buy things that they really don't want, or that they probably wouldn't, I should say.
Mhm.
I mean, they're, you know,
Mhm. And I
they're
mean,
actually somewhat of a fraudulent area.
yeah. Well, there's a large difference, I think, for me to like if I'm looking at a video game thing or movie things that I do a lot. For me, like if I'm on Rotten Tomatoes to get ads about movies, if I'm on like game FAQs or something to get ads about video games, even there's some crossover in there, and the people know this. Um, but like it's a whole lot different that I mean, like, can you even imagine if like let's say like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon or something would start playing ads individually on their stations for different children? Like, imagine what would happen for that.
Yeah.
Like in the outcry that that would be, and that's what they are doing
Well,
to kids even.
it's sort of like that these people, although they do it in an electronic way, are standing outside your window when you're on your computer and watching what you're doing.
Oh
Or
yeah.
when you watch TV, they're watching what you're doing
Hmm.
outside. They're peeping toms,
Yeah.
which
Well,
we
like,
do not allow
hmm
regularly.
well, what I like, I really remember one of the lines that always kind of freaked me out in like Ex Machina, which is a movie
Yeah.
that has somewhat to do with this.
Hmm.
Um, is like when he talks about like the reason he constructed the woman's face, which is the movie about like, if you haven't seen Ex Machina, watch it. We both give it high reviews, so it should have ended probably about a minute earlier. Um,
Yeah.
is he constructs a robot that he's trying to pass the Turing test, and he like one of the big reveals is like he can is why he got the guy there. At first he tells me he's a great software engineer, and that's why. But later on it's found different. He says he constructed the face based on the guy's porn profile,
Yeah.
which is which is something that I fully suspect Google is doing. And first off, congratulations, the porn industry. You guys got called out on something and actually fixed it on the website, unlike Google and Facebook recently. Uh, and actually at least try, or which is bad that a thing that is CD and bad origins of as porn is usually in some cases. I'm not
Yeah.
anti-porn or anything. Is trying to fix itself and prevent that. But I mean, like going back to it, it's like it talked about like one of the things I thought was actually not that bad of an idea is collecting, taxing them on the data they collect from you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't think it's. I mean, obviously, like I don't see any problem with like if I'm watching a podcast about movies per se on YouTube, that it links me other podcasts or other people talking about movies or something.
Yeah.
If I'm, I don't think like anybody has any problems with that. But that's all. But I think what they have problems is if let's say I'm doing a scholarly research article. When I was getting my master's, and all of a sudden start getting a bunch of ads for like Star Wars or something. Well, I guess Star Wars wouldn't be, but like one of the weird niche video games I play, because I play a lot of like the weird ones from Japan and stuff. I just don't want to use Star Wars because it's such a universally thing, and anybody looking at probably engineering research would probably have some interest in Star Wars. Uh,
Hmm.
I have a master's in that. I can say that about those nerds. Um, but or like something else, or no, I need a water heater or something.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and like obviously that's a huge problem. But what they also don't do is like they have this technology that they're using to get ads when they could use it to tell if people are being suicidal, use it
Yeah.
to tell more likely if somebody's getting abused, use it to tell if somebody has an eating disorder, or at least gain information on that.
Well, here's the thing. Everything that we do is
Mm-hmm.
we no longer like I think about this as to I have for years used uh, where I spoke into the computer and had it write out my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 1980s, early 80s, I got Dragon the Dragon Dictate thing and started using it. And at that point, they were just, you had to put in each word separately. You had to put in a word, stop, put it in a word. And it did a very good job. It did a very good job from the very beginning when I started with it. And then all of a sudden, in right around the turn of the century, they came up with where you could dictate in and you didn't have to stop. Actually, when that first started, that was a lot worse than the dictating each word. But that started up, and we got that. But the Dragon Dictate was all on our computer. Today, you can't do that. You've got to put your words to Dragon Dictate, which they keep track of forever, and can run through and can go through and analyze each and every part of what you're saying.
And
I think that's wrong. And I think the other problem is they went away from a system like my dictation. They could analyze for me myself. And that's what I needed because I was a person who was dictating on it. But today the systems are set up for everyone. You go into the general database and they're analyzing you against everyone. And that's I mean, as I said, I thought they got very good, and I don't think that the recognition today is as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
Because they haven't zeroed in on the single person. They went for everyone. Everything goes back to them, and they get it. But the reason we do that in Dragon Dictate is because they make a hell of a lot more money that way.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of the things that they didn't point out is they aren't using these things to improve people's lives. They're using them to gain money.
Right.
The film just seems just short of like, it says, ooh, some of this stuff is really bad, but it doesn't say like, ooh, this like stuff is. It says, ooh, some of this stuff is bad or icky. It never goes, ooh, this is really bad and needs to be stopped immediately. It never says like, okay, we need to. It never like cracks down like we need to pass this, and this law to prevent this. It never goes like, okay, what Facebook is doing is bad. But now imagine if Facebook decided to start being more political, more like that. One of the things you talked about. Well,
we don't really know how political it is.
Yeah, and that. But like one of the things that's easily done is like obviously you have senators and congressmen talking about like breaking up Facebook or breaking up one of these companies because they're getting too big or something like that. I mean, Facebook could easily be manipulating their users to go against them or vote against them or something along that line. And I mean, again, one of these things is also they're doing it to children. That it never really cracked into that it's not just doing it to adults, it's doing it to children. I mean, YouTube's had, like, I don't know about it, but like one of the funniest controversies ever on YouTube was the weird children's programming that was getting hundreds of millions of views. Not to talk about, there was, first off, like, it was really bizarre, and a lot of it was totally inappropriate for children.
Well, the other thing is, the one thing I was thinking of is the leading woman on ethics at Google has just been fired.
Yeah.
And one of her big ethical considerations was she thought the algorithms were racist overall. And but the and she ended up getting fired. So there is a real dilemma in that. But the dilemma, I think, is this is a peeping Tom problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that gets me is, let's say I was a person at Google who had access to this data, and I wanted to access out a young lady in the company or that
Yeah.
I've met, I could get all kinds of data on her.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I could get data, the company that makes the bed that keeps you from snoring.
Mm-hmm.
It actually has microphones in the bed and listens to you.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, that's just
And they sell that data on the marketplace.
yeah. I mean, a lot of things. It um, a lot. I mean, it's the data they're getting. The metadata more than ads is probably what they make a lot of the money on.
Yes.
They make. I mean, it's close if not for that. But I mean,
Well,
they're
there's
not.
some companies that that's all they make the money on.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're companies that you wouldn't, well, like the metadata, there's certain metadata from listening in the bedroom. There,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the Ramba, uh, the iRobot
Mm-hmm.
that goes around your house. They sell metadata from that of the diagrams of your house.
Yeah, it's nice for robbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous.
Well, like literally, what it is it's a peeping tom looking in the window. He has a microphone on you.
Yeah.
He can see what you're seeing. Can see what you're typing. About the
Mhm.
only thing he doesn't have is binoculars to see you through your webcam.
Well, yeah,
At
but
least yet.
the you know, we don't really know when our webcam's on and off. It can be
Yeah.
turned on.
Mhm.
Now, mine, I can't. Nobody can look through
Yeah.
at me.
Yeah.
But uh, I mean, even on the cell phones, there's external ways to turn on the uh,
Yeah.
the camera.
I mean, mind you, they track your cell phone data, how you move, not
Yeah.
just like how long you're staying in certain areas and that. And I mean,
Well,
it's
that was in the movie where he was in there where his ex-girlfriend was.
yeah, or something. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that stuff's like, if you're closer to one place, you'll get more ads from that, and if you're closer to that, and it's like, I mean, and that's like, okay, if I'm closer, if I'm, I mean, and I don't see like, I don't think it's a tremendous thing that like, if they know I'm close to a Burger King, that they might send me another Burger King ad. I don't,
Yeah.
because I don't view that as any different than like if I'm watching a show on TV,
Yeah.
and that's not like, maybe in like they have a general area, but if they know maybe if I'm like a block from a Burger King, that's bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like unreasonable on this. I understand, but again, but like, and I feel like this film just doesn't touch on a lot of these issues, or
Hmm.
if it does, feels like it has the kitty gloves on for a lot of it.
Right. It, well, especially for a lot of a lot of the people says, yeah, I was part of it. I got really,
Hmm.
you know, sort of hoodwinked into it. I got into it. It was exciting. We were doing these
Yeah,
things, and we didn't really think about what we were doing.
yeah,
But now that I think about it, it was wrong. But he was sort of there saying, but I don't really take responsibility for this. I'm not going to go out and try to stop it. I'm not, he was just saying, I did this.
yeah.
And it, I never got, there's only a couple people in the list who really was out there to say, this is wrong. We need to stop this now.
Mhm. And like I said, I fully understand nobody wants to be the villain of their own story. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to admit that they helped create something like this. Nobody wants to do it. And I understand that completely. But one, you need to grill those people for this. Um, that you shouldn't put on the kitty gloves for somebody that, even if they unwittingly created this. Um, I mean, uh, and like, I get trying to understand the reasons why they created it. I'm sure almost all of them out there, for at least 95% of the things they made, reasons for creating it was good, or thought it would help, or thought it would make something easier, or thought it would whatever. Like just making something look better. I mean, if I try to make a website look better, does that mean I want people to spend more time on it? Not really. Does it mean I want them to be nicer on their eyes? Yes. Does that mean they're going to spend more time on it? Maybe. But in like that kind of stuff, but so on that, it just felt like it was so tame. Like I
Yeah.
said, they at the end they kind of got into some of the more things, and every now and then they'd hint at it. Like at the end, they got into the anti-vaccine people on it, but like they never pointed out like, hey, there are videos, there are things you can go on YouTube right now that are like straight up neo-Nazi or fascist or a racist, and they're not doing anything about it. They're not. They don't. And they have hundreds of thousands. I'm not talking about like some little channel. I'm talking about ones with hundreds of thousands of views.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
frankly, some of the and how one they don't even enforce their own damn rules. They don't enforce for larger contributors a lot of the time on that. They don't enforce like the harassment or the homophobia or the and that kind of stuff on that. And like some of it I wouldn't be fine with if it wasn't the fact that you allow the big people to get away with it and not the small people. I mean, Twitch has been terrible about that for years with some of the sexual content on it. I don't know if they've ever even really cleaned it up, but I know we're on Twitch and YouTube right now, but still, I don't. It might be against the rules even to comment on that, but nobody will probably call us out.
One of the big complaints about the movie from several people, especially several people in the industry, was that the movie did not go far enough. It was a simplistic assessment of what was going on.
Yeah.
And I know the Missoula put out one saying, well, they didn't get enough people of color in there who have a bigger problem with social media than most are white. Slate came out and criticized them for not having the really top names and people who've been really attacking social media for years.
Yeah.
And it was tame.
Yeah. And like I said, it's very important to have the people come out, even if they don't want to portray themselves as villains or whatever, and say what they created was bad, to come out against this stuff.
Yes.
I think that's extremely important. It's also 90 minutes, and it definitely could have been longer because you definitely could have went into this
Yeah.
more. But you also can't like dance around the fact that like a lot of the conspiracy theories, you can't dance around like all these conspiracy theories going on, or like the QAnon stuff, or
Yeah.
the like the Pizzagate with almost got people killed, or the ones that have gotten people killed. They danced around like the Charlottesville stuff. They danced around that, um, and um, and I don't get like. I mean, I don't know. It was rated PG-13, so that you could have gotten into this stuff. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have went further, but
Yeah.
I felt like it should be longer. It needed to have more teeth.
Yes.
And like I
Needs to have
said,
more teeth for sure.
it's much like having a fictionalized version of what's happening in a documentary, like doing some of the stuff with the brain was fine. They had this whole story with the family, which one like it took out time from talking to these people, and the story I talked about, like the guy that getting on for self help, is
Yeah.
anecdotal like this was, and it actually happened, and it's way more terrifying because it was a person that was literally looking for help, and because of the algorithms, because of the fact they don't know how YouTube was set up, he started becoming a racist.
Yeah.
And he only like actually got out of it because of the debate somebody did so terribly and was so stupid. If I remember right, they got destroyed. And I think like, and some of these people like, I don't know. There's like a huge number, even though they talk about this, like you get that warning that's like some of this stuff may not be accurate. No, you need to do way more than that. You can't just, and I don't think it's controversial to say you can't just put on this warning because, I mean, you literally have people going out and saying, well, if it's not accurate, it must be true.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the good examples they gave was like on the Wikipedia articles, I thought. This was actually one of the things I like. They pointed out, like, if you go to Wikipedia, every page you see is the same as everybody else. But if you type in global warming, the autofill in Google changes to like is fake or is whatever or is.
Yeah.
And gives you different things, depending
Yeah.
on where you're at in the country. And now that's definitely fine for some things or in certain situations, but like for disputed scientific facts, I should say undisputed, not disputed. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or something that like I don't know you can prove because we have greenhouses. And what does a greenhouse do? Captures carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Um. Uh. Uh. I don't know. Like I said, it just felt like this needed way more teeth on it, and way more
Mhm.
like I don't even think it. If it was just like, even if it just spent the entire time kind of explaining how like they do the ads, I think it would have been better. Because you could explain how they do the ads and how they like kind of get you to go to the stuff and how they try to keep you doing it on longer, and kind of show how that works. And I think
Yeah.
that alone would be more anti what these companies are doing than this film.
Yeah.
And you don't even really need to make a political statement on it, just because it is literally being a peeping tom.
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's worse than being a peeping tom, because it's not only being a peeping tom, but it's then being a peeping tom selling the information, and then using that to also guide you so they can make more money.
Yeah.
Um, and when it comes down to it, it's all about, right now, at least to our knowledge, and like I said, this could be worse. It's all about making the money.
It's all about making the money.
It's not about like, hey, these people might have. We're gathering this data on people because, hey, we can then help prevent suicide. We can help depression. We can help. It's
Yeah.
about making the money, and that's all.
It's about making the money. And, Facebook's argument was, well, they didn't tell, you know, on this, Facebook gave their thing that it gives a distorted view of how social media platforms work, creating a convenient scapegoat for the difficulties and complexities of social problems.
Hmm.
Well, one of the difficulties of social problems is that we got Facebook, which makes it much harder to deal with.
Well, yeah, it's the
Eh,
old statement of before, like if you,
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's a typical statement saying, well, we're not responsible even though we're trying to get you to do these things because you made the choice.
yeah, well, it's that old thing of like before, and this isn't always a good thing or bad thing. If you like stated your view and it was stupid, you didn't have a community for it unless you were in a really big city.
Yeah,
Now, this was good for obviously people at the time that when they were like condemning homosexuality, transsexuals, etc.
yeah,
Um, it was really bad, but it was good for like neo Nazis
yeah,
or race realists or whatever the hell they call
yeah,
themselves now.
yeah,
Um, or like, I mean, the thing is, like, when I was in high school, we actually discussed the bell curve, that book that was essentially racist and bullshit.
yeah.
Um, People are bringing that back online. That was something that was in my history books that literally said this is wrong,
Mhm.
and it is in modern history. It was like, oh, here's what it was. Here's why it was a big deal. It essentially created a whole system of people getting their doctorates and masters and bachelor's theses and whatever of just disproving the stupidity.
Mhm.
And it's
Well,
very,
it was from one of the non-understandings
yeah,
of statistics.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a
When you have
whole.
a small minority in a statistical group,
Mm-hmm,
the chances of them not performing well as a whole is much greater.
mm-hmm,
In fact, the issue just came up here recently on a movie that we went over, the uh, Queen's Gambit,
mm-hmm,
where uh, one of the things they said about the Queen's Gambit is all the men in the story actually helped the woman,
mm-hmm,
and that wouldn't have happened, and that doesn't happen today in the area of chess.
mm-hmm,
It's a very male-dominated area,
mm-hmm,
and women take a beating in it.
mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they pointed out is that if you have a statistically small percentage,
Mm-hmm.
in chess, about 8 or 9% of the
Mm-hmm.
people who play it are women,
Mm-hmm.
then the chances of them being in the top 10 players is very, very small.
Yeah.
And uh,
Well, first off,
it's a
like you said,
statistical
there should
rule.
probably be maybe a one. one person in that.
Yeah.
There's probably would only be about one in there in general
Yeah.
because of just the amount, like you said, 8 to 9
Mhm.
percent, and
Yeah.
there's only 10 people, and that makes it up. I mean, it might even
Well, yeah, but your chances of you to be one of the 10
mm,
is extremely small.
to begin with. Yeah.
To begin with, as you know, it's more like
Mm,
1 in 100 chances of being there.
yeah.
That's just a statistical knowledge.
Mm,
And that's exactly what the guy did
mm.
in the bell curve.
Well, I mean, he also never took into account things like poverty, systemic racism,
Yeah.
the way
Well,
these things are, and like just the areas they grew up in. I mean, look at all the kids in Flint, Michigan that are going to have. I mean, that's an entire generation of kids that are going to have, um,
yeah. Well,
of all races that are going to have. I mean, a lot of well, mental issues from. I'm talking about from the lead in the pipes.
yeah.
A lot of anger issues, a lot of mental issues, a lot of there's going to be a lot of criminality
Lower
there,
IQs.
lower IQs. It has nothing to do with. It has everything. Well, it had to do with they literally had lead in their freaking drinking water.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it had to do with people trying to get cheaper drinking water.
well, not even get cheaper drinking water, make more money
Yeah, yeah.
because it wasn't cheaper in the long run. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, that's a whole like that's a whole other tangent, but it's like stuff like this that you see all the time, and like, I mean, there's a lot. There's always is and always has been a lot of like misquoting of statistics and studies, or
Mhm.
like even things like a study will come out and then they'll say, well, it might not fully affect like the one about like there's always they always talk about the way you can be like is like
Yeah,
get a job.
yeah.
I should say stay at it, get a job and maintain having a job. Don't have kids till you're married, and I forget like the third one that's on that the what that they always use, and they always but that has been further expanded upon to say like, hey, this isn't always true. This is true for the majority of white people, and not as true for African Americans because there's different roadblocks and different blah blah blah, and
Mm.
um,
Well, the remember the only statistic
mhm,
that affects how you do in school, the only real contributing factor is who your parents are.
yeah, income,
Yeah. Yeah, income and status. Yeah.
yeah, income and status is a big one. I mean like, and um, but I mean the big point is that uh, even something like as outdated as a concept as the bell curve, that
Yeah.
um, I mean, it was as soon as it came out, it got destroyed in the '90s, early '90s,
Yeah.
I think it was. Is back,
Yeah.
and you can see a lot of stuff on it. You can see a lot of, I mean, you can see a lot of just people like taking historic things, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's even weird. Like I saw something like the person talked about like the Crusades and was using them to like and talked about it how it was Muslim aggression and stuff, and it's like everybody was aggressive at that time period, and that's not even how like first off there was many different crusades. Uh,
Well, the Crusades were about retaking the Holy Land.
yeah, I mean it was
It
just it's
wasn't about. I mean,
yeah, it's just stuff absurd. But and these are things that like I'm not like trying to use them as like blah 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 blah. These are things that are heavily done on YouTube and stuff on their analytics of what I've seen over the years. Um, you had a lot of like in like not too many years ago, you obviously had all those weird children's videos. You had a lot of like videos where people would be watching like cringe videos, and they go down this weird right wing rabbit hole, because you get like stupid ones from the crazy people at the universities, like the famous one of the person talking about decolonizing your mind and how African witch doctors can hit people with lightning, and like reasonably like any person that's listening to that thinks the person's crazy,
yeah.
but then it takes you down some like anti-college and stuff rabbit holes and stuff. Um, like I said, the video like it's of itself, I just think it shows this crazy person that doesn't know what they're talking about,
Yeah.
uh, and that kind of stuff. But um, I mean, so it's not even like it's the fact that the algorithms that they have don't even really work. But they still make them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're not, I mean, it doesn't even get to the fact that they're not really making anything. They're just advertising, and
Yeah.
these are the biggest companies in the world. And
Yeah.
I think Apple's a bit of an exception there because they actually make products, but Facebook, Google, they don't really make anything.
Yeah.
Um, and like how much worse it's going to be with like the driver. They don't like ever go in like how things are going to get worse and how, like they always in this film they always fall short in saying, yeah, you're gonna. It's always what you can do to stop it. Never like you need to regulate this stuff.
Yeah.
You can't. You have to stop some of them because they're not going to stop on their own because it's too much money.
Yeah.
Um, because like even the stuff like they say like oh you can't do this this and this. I'm looking for a job right now. I have to do that stuff in order to get a job.
Mhm.
Uh, let alone the AIs they use to search out the resumes and stuff you go through.
Yeah.
Um, that also don't work.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, uh, I mean that's a whole other thing. But like I said, this doesn't. I think I'm not sure if it just it takes almost too many issues and like just goes they're bad. Okay, done.
Yeah.
And some of the things like didn't help. It because some uh to the more absurd degrees and all that. But so overall, I can't really recommend this show. Uh, can you?
I think that it's something to start with, but you got to do a heck of a lot more research.
Yeah. I mean,
And
honestly, this needs to be like a mini series. You
yeah.
need to first off interview these people, and you need to have somebody that will actually go at them
Mhm.
uh, on it, and you need to like it could have been done fine in a 2 hour documentary, probably maybe not so 90 minutes, but you need to have a lot more teeth to it.
Yes.
You need to be like, I mean, it's like, oh, this is causing suicide and stuff, blah blah blah. It's like, and I mean, it's not the fact that these things are just causing suicide, and it's which again I don't know, I can't remember like them saying any statistics, and again, causation is not correlation is not causation. Um, but I can say that even for like good documentaries that don't always do that or cite their sources or
Yeah.
in that, but it's just so tame and stuff.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, it's so tame and it doesn't go into that and it doesn't have any like it just doesn't have any teeth um, to it. Like I said, the only thing they recommend like doing that's not yours is the guy saying we should put a tax on how much data they collect from you, which could be a part of it, but it's not going to solve everything.
No.
Uh, I mean, like, so I don't know. I just like I can't recommend it. It might not be a bad starting point, but there's so many more things, and there's so many more interesting things. Um, like I said, this again going for like the third time going back to it. The story I found about the guy that goes for self help and literally, because of YouTube's algorithms, becomes a racist or starts believing in the things is way more disturbing and way more fascinating and way more a failure of YouTube and these things, as well as the children one's just hilarious, and you can see dozens of videos on it because of the weird things that they were showing children, uh, like the finger friends and whatnot, um, or Spider-Man and Elsa was the big one I think too, but I don't know. I just feel like it could have been so much better and so much more interesting.
Yes.
But I don't know. I don't have anything else to say on this one. Do you?
No, I do not.
Okay, well then, as always, even though we just trash these companies, please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and hit me up on Twitch. Bye.